Good evening, folks. This is the Factivist Project with the Factivist Report for Sunday, April 3rd. We tried this once before, and now we're back again. So let's talk about what this is. This is about the allegation from the Republicans who were questioning Ketanji Brown Jackson that she is soft on crime, particularly sex crimes. Again, judging a SCOTUS nominee from these kinds of hearings is impossible because these are all politically driven, no matter how you look at it. This is less about her ability as a judge or her judgment as a judge than it is about who she is as a person. We've had some ridiculous questions asked of her, and we've had some allegations about her softness on crime taken totally out of context and or either that or said without context, one or the other. So I'm going to turn this over to Dave. He's done a lot of work on this. Some of what you see in here is not pretty, but then again, you know, life is messy, and you need to just suck it up and get used to it. So here we are.
As Deb said a long time ago, if we're going to be serious about defending every single person's rights, we're going to be serious about it. And that includes murderers, pedophiles, all of those people, while at the same time protecting the public. So, yeah, and you have to keep that in mind. And Ketanji Brown Jackson has kept that in mind. You have to understand that she was on the United States Sentencing Commission for a while. So to attack her on sentencing guidelines, first off, Congress selected her to that position. Second off, currently, starting from the Trump administration, we have no United States Sentencing Commission. Why? Because Trump allowed all of those positions, except for one voting position and two non-voting positions, to go vacant. So they don't have a quorum right now. So there is no commission right now. And the one person, not Stephen Breyer, but there was another Breyer who's a district court judge, he is imploring Biden to appoint people so that these sentencing issues can be addressed. Well, let's get into it just a little. Go ahead, Deb.
One thing, these are literally, it is literally like 6 slots that are open. And largely because Donald Trump didn't really just give a shit about it. So he just let it go. So let's not blame Joe Biden. I know we're going to go there. We'll go there. Let's not blame Joe Biden for that one, okay? Because that's not where it belongs.
Right. You need to re-enable screen sharing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Sorry, we had a little technical difficulty starting up.
Let's see here. Okay, so I'm going to start with an article in The Hill from Alan Dershowitz. Alan Dershowitz makes the point that you cannot judge a SCOTUS nominee based on her case, the cases that she, quote unquote, was picked. She was assigned cases and she did well on those cases as a public defender. She defended people accused of terrorism, child molesters. When you go to court and you're defending people as a public defender, you don't get to pick those people. So to criticize her for doing her job well, it's a bit hypocritical. By the way, Alan Dershowitz, when he defended Trump, Tom Cotton praised him. Now, there is a little bit of let's say, inconsistency within the Republican Party in terms of sentencing. In 2018, there was a bill signed. It was called the First Step Act, and their goal is to reduce sentences for certain crimes, while at the same time eliminating some of the incentives inside the jail to like reduce their time inside jail. So there was this law that was signed in 2018, which Grassley said was a landmark case. And guess what? Now they're walking back on that because they want to be tough on crime again. They're fractured on criminal justice reform because they want to go back to that whole hard line of being, the law and order party again.
Because it's election season.
Right. Well, at the same time, 10 Congress people, I believe it was Congress people, just supported a bill to reduce sentences in terms of crack cocaine versus powder cocaine. But some Republicans are like, no, we can't do that, our image. So this is a piece from Ketanji Brown Jackson herself from the Harvard Law Review. It's very detailed and eloquent, honestly. Prevention versus punishment towards a principled distinction in the restraint of released sex offenders. Now, what she's basically doing is asking for programs and observation and basically surveillance, I'll use the word, wristbands and home, house arrest and those kind of things, home confinement, very strict observation programs. So the American criminal justice system has two dichotomous objectives: to punish wrongdoers and prevent future harm, because the Constitution assumes that the exercise of legislative power and the pursuit of punishment represents a greater threat to individual liberty than does preventative state regulation. Courts must determine which statutes serve each goal. In theory, the distinction is easily drawn. In practice, however, innovative statutory responses to the burgeoning crime problem have reopened the complex and oftentimes highly emotional debate as to the correct boundary between legislative regulation and punishment. And if you remember, this kind of thing actually helped get a president elected, Willie Horton, who was on a furlough program, who left his home and sexually assaulted a woman. And it was actually attributed, the Papa Bush win was attributed partly to that.
It became Michael Dukakis's downfall.
It did. This is the United States Sentencing Commission 2021 Guidelines Manual. Basically, it's going to be the same every year now because they don't have a commission right this second. So this is the commission.
If you want to understand sentencing guidelines, you could download the PDF and make use of it.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
It's right there. That's why I put it in there. So we have the acting chair and commissioner, who is basically the only guy, Charles Breyer. And then we have 6 vacancies, and then you have 2 non-voting officers. I don't know if they're clerks or what their purpose is. Maybe they oversee the PDFs or whatever. I don't know. But this is a Reuters article back November 11th, 2021. U.S. Sentencing Panel's last member, Breyer, urges Biden to revive the commission. In all honesty, these attacks on Ketanji Brown Jackson should spur Joe Biden to revitalize that commission. And put people on that commission before right-wing people get their hands on it. Because as Deb well knows, there are new laws coming on the books every single day, and I can see that commission coming into play when you're talking about the bounty hunter laws and all that kind of crap. Just saying.
By the way, can I just interject something here while we're waiting for this to come up? The notion that we have elected senators and congresspeople in a hearing for a judge who is being appointed to the Supreme Court, who are literally tweeting while they're asking questions and involved in this process is absurd.
Right.
Okay. When I go to work, I can't tweet at a hardware store. So this is all of this social media positioning. I'm going to just say it. Okay. As much as social media has been a boon to the world, it's been a nightmare to the world too. All of this tweeting from the hearing floor and all of this nonsense, this is all political posturing. This shit shouldn't be allowed in a meeting like that. You can tweet when it's over.
Now, Josh Hawley and Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz had his little chart, the whole thing. I'll get into a couple of the cases in a minute, but he lists 7 lenient Ketanji Brown Jackson child porn sentencings. I will get into what his argument is based on what the guidelines are, and I'll talk about the guidelines a little bit. But they are based on guidelines that have been deemed too stringent in the first place, and it garnered a U.S. Supreme Court case saying that they were too stringent, which is why we need a sentencing commission. Yeah, it puts it in sleep mode.
I know. I go through the same thing.
Is this one? I think this is one. I would skip it, but I think this is the one.
No, we need to see it. It's fine.
All right. So yeah. Okay. So let's see here. All right. Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Dick Durbin attempted to head off potentially fraught inquiries after Josh Hawley raised 7 child porn cases in which Jackson issued sentences that Hawley deemed too lenient during his opening statement Monday. And may I say that the judgment that these sentences were too lenient are based solely on, they're only looking at the sentencing. They're not looking at what happens after the sentencing, by the way. He was questioning your sentencing record in child pornography cases that do not involve the production of pornographic material, Durbin told Jackson as the hearing began, citing tweets by Hawley that accused her of letting child porn offenders off the hook. I thought about his charges as I watched you and your family listening carefully, and what impact that might have had on you personally. Could you tell us what was going through your mind at that point? As a mother and a judge who has had to deal with these cases, I was thinking nothing could be further from the truth. Jackson responded, these are some of the most difficult cases that a judge has to deal with because we're talking about pictures of sex abuse of children. And by the way, she has to look at every single one of these videos, pictures, whatever. We're talking about graphic descriptions that judges have to read and consider when they decide how to sentence in these cases. The judge stood by her sentences, noting that the statutes passed by Congress to guide those decisions are sufficient, but not greater than necessary. So let's see here. We have an ex-FBI agent. Says the Supreme Court is about to appoint a justice who goes easy on sexual exploiters of children. One of the things that when you read these, you will never hear anything about the programs that they place these people in after they are released. It's part of it. So this is a fact check from AP. Trying to remember exactly. I think this is about, the claim was that she used race in order to sentence, like she used critical race theory, which isn't true. Let's see here.
As long as we can wrap all of these hot button items together, the Republicans are happy.
Yeah.
No, really, it's amazing how anybody can take them fucking seriously at this point.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So this is Hawley again. Judge Jackson has opined there may be a type of less serious child pornography offender. A less serious child pornography offender? There are different levels. There are those who create and produce this material. There are those who put their hands on kids and who are pedophiles. There are people who download the material and just download it. So there are different stages of this thing. So the statement was based on questions that she was asking during one of the hearings for the Sentencing Commission when she was on in 2012. She told the hearing she was surprised at a Justice Department's expert testimony that, as she put it, some child offenders may actually not be pedophiles, but perhaps loners looking for like-minded company in child pornography circles. Being surprised by that assertion and wanting to know are not the same as endorsing it. She was asking a question. I'm wondering whether that's her job. So I'm wondering whether you could say that there could be a less serious child pornography offender who is engaging in the type of conduct in the group experience level. She asked the expert witness. And again, that's what you do. You ask witnesses. They're very sophisticated technology, but they aren't necessarily that interested in the child pornography piece of it. From those questions, Hawley extrapolated that Jackson had drawn conclusions. There's another one. This talks about, this is the one where Marsha Blackburn gets involved. So you described in a Ted Cruz, you described in a speech to a law school what you were doing as critical race theory. You have made clear, as Blackburn, that you believe judges must consider critical race theory when deciding how to sentence criminal defendants. Wrong. Jackson never called for it to be incorporated into federal sentencing, nor said that it should be used as part of her work as a judge. Critical race theory is a broad-based term used as a line of thinking in law schools that racism is systemic in the nation's institutions. Many Republicans have since cast it as culture war effort to rewrite American history and convince white people that they are inherently racist. Good Lord. The Great Replacement Theory.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I'm going to talk a little bit about some of these cases. 3 out of those 7 cases, you know. Wesley Hawkins. Here is Ted Cruz pointing at his little chart. 3 months, 3 months. Oh, my head explodes. You know, so Wesley Hawkins was the case that many Republicans used as the template for how light on crime Ketanji Brown Jackson was. This was a very unique case in that even the prosecutors who normally go for a higher sentence only went for 2 months. This was a 19-year-old teenager still in high school, or 18-year-old, I'm sorry, 18-year-old in 2013. I believe he was 19 when he was sentenced. Then in high school, started downloading pornographic images from the internet, and according to his lawyer, felt confusion and shock rather than arousal. A gay boy from a religious family that strongly disapproved of homosexuality, Mr. Hawkins was driven by a kind of curiosity about the images, and his connection to the people in them seemed, his lawyer said, to be one of identifying than one of exploiting them sexually. So many images were extremely disturbing. Young boys engaged in a variety of sex acts, some of them violent. Mr. Hawkins reposted some of the images on YouTube. So law enforcement officers got a cyber tip about him, and a police detective posing as a fellow child pornography collector reached out to him by email and suggested they trade images, which, by the way, is distribution. So prosecutors say that Mr. Hawkins eventually swapped images with the undercover detective, sending some files and asking for others that he believed were of the detective's 12-year-old daughter. He was then arrested in June 2013, and prosecutors said he was immediately cooperative and took full responsibility for his actions. So, his age was taken into account, his mental state was taken into account, and a sentencing was November of 2013. Prosecution asked Judge Jackson to sentence Mr. Hawkins to 2 years in prison, arguing that his possession of the material was extremely troubling and disturbing and punishment. Also, the running argument is that this perpetuates the abuse of these children, that the purchase of or that the distribution of this stuff. So Mr. Hawkins' lawyer asked for a single day in prison. He claimed his client was young, remorseful, and suffered from emerging mental illness. So eventually what happened was Judge Jackson sentenced him to 3 months in prison and put him on into a program for 6 years, I believe it was. 6 years of supervised release. Yep. So to me, was that fair? Yeah, that was fair in this particular case, yes. In making her decision a truly difficult situation, as she put it at the time, Judge Jackson issued a sentence lower than the ones recommended by both the probation department and the non-binding federal guidelines. She also credited the defense's claims that Mr. Hawkins should not be thought of as a pedophile because he was fairly close to age and to the children depicted in the images he had. I don't know if I buy that argument, but while she acknowledged that Mr. Hawkins' crimes were serious and heinous, she also said that his case was not as troubling as others that she has seen. I do not believe you are similar in intent or as culpable as some of the other depraved adults. And even the prosecution said that this was a very unique case. So here we go. This is another, just a companion article to that. This is Wesley Hawkins' release to the PSA's high intensity supervision program. He has to sign this. In the very beginning, you will be under basically house arrest. You can't leave your house for 21 days. You will be supervised by a type of electronic monitoring device as to be determined by the PSA. You're required to properly maintain and charge the monitoring device each day. Any attempt to tamper with or mask the device's monitoring capability may result in an additional criminal charge. So this is talking about the home confinement. And then under others, no internet access, no contact with minors, phone checks by the PSA, permitted to work. I don't know what the computer is to be determined, I think. I don't know. But this is an example of the program. So here's another individual, Adam Chazen, 25 years old, downloaded material. This one's a little different because he also had a weapons charge. So it gets a little graphic into the types of material that he downloaded. He put it in a Dropbox over the period of several months. So it's not like he just went, oops, it was a mistake. It was not a mistake. So here's some of the material. A clothed prepubescent female child is shown wearing pajamas, lying between the legs of an adult man. Adult man's erect penis is exposed to the camera. Child is shown placing the man's penis in her mouth, grasping his penis with her hands. Prepubescent female child observed laying on her back with the lower half of her body exposed to the camera. Adult man's penis seemed rubbing and penetrating the child's vagina. It goes on. I'm not going to continue. You get the point. He also had 8 magazines with the capacity to hold up to 31 rounds of ammunition. So, and thank you, Amazon, by the way. Oh, just saying. 2 Apple iPhones belonging to Chazen also recovered during the search of the residence. So that is the so that was basically a description of the charges. Let's see here. This is the plea agreement. We have the sentencing of, or the the prosecution and the statement from the defendant. But this is the so this is the agreement. So he agrees to plead guilty to a criminal information, a copy of which is attached, charging your client with possession of child pornography. And he understands that comes with a potential charge of up to 20 years. He got 6 years with, I can't remember how many, what it was. It was either 10 or 15. No, it was 10 to 15 years of supervision.
Right.
So this is how they figure out. These are some of the guidelines. So the base offense level is 18. So you add 2 points for a prepubescent minor, 4 points for an infant toddler, 2 for use of a computer. Number of images, I think it was like 60, so that's plus 5. I don't know how they figure that one out. So that's 31. Government agrees that a 2-level reduction will be appropriate, provided that your client clearly demonstrates acceptance of responsibility. He didn't deny it. So estimated criminal history, guidelines range, etc. Let's see here. Hurry up. No, it's the same thing. But here we go. Judgment. So this was his judgment. Possession of child pornography and possession of an unregistered firearm. And apparently an ammunition delivery device, but I guess maybe they dropped that charge. Or maybe, no, it's 2 counts. So, a feeding device. Yep. Okay, count number. All right. So, court makes the following. So 28 months, 2 years, 4 months, 180 days on count 2, 90 days on count 3. So, okay. So 3 years, 3 months. And then
$6 years and 1 month supervised release.
Supervised release. So and then standard conditions of supervision, similar to what. So he's 20, he's 25. So, and plus the fact that he had to pay to some of the victims. So that's $9,000 he owes. Wait a minute. Lump sum payment of $250?
Do immediately.
All right. Yeah. So here's the most serious one that I found. Neil Stewart. I want people to understand this. There's a reason why all of this paperwork is generated, because the people in the courts realize that some of these people are not going to make it through their release. They know it. And this is an article from the Daily Signal. What happened when Jackson went easy on this sex offender? I believe it was 15 years he had to make it. And I'll go through the case. This is probably the worst one. Stewart's case is one of 7 offender cases. Oh, wait a minute. I missed it. Oop. On January 5th, 2020, St. Mary's County Sheriff's Office in Maryland arrested Neil Stewart, then 35, on 4 counts of possessing controlled dangerous substances other than marijuana, as well as drug paraphernalia, and that is a violation of his release. So this is Neil Stewart. And this one, yeah.
The one thing that we should point out here is that source, the Daily Signal. They will take a hard line. They are a publication of the Heritage Foundation. So
Okay.
That is a conservative political organization.
Right. This gentleman has admitted basically to liking children, just so you know. So this one was bad. All right. Defendant knowingly possessed materials that the defendant knew contained visual depictions of minors engaged in sexually explicit conduct. Defendant knew each visual depiction contained in the materials showed minors engaged in sexually explicit conduct. Defendant knew the visual depiction involved the use of minors engaging in explicit conduct. Each visual depiction had either been mailed, shipped, or transported using by means or facility of interstate and foreign commerce, which adds some time, or in affecting interstate and foreign commerce and by any means used, including by computer, and produced by materials that had been mailed, shipped, or transported in interstate or foreign commerce by any means, including by the computer. So this was an undercover investigation leading up to October 7th, 2015, District of Columbia Metropolitan Police Department Detective Timothy Polchak had been acting in an undercover capacity as part of a multi-jurisdictional FBI MPD child exploitation task force operating out of a satellite office in DC. In that capacity, Detective Polchak posted an advertisement in a predicated area of an online website for classified ads, which, based on the UC's experience and information gathered from other sources, is an area of the site frequented by pedophiles. I'm not sure just going to say it. The advertisement was intended to attract individuals with a sexual interest in children through the use of adjectives such as taboo and perv. On October 7th, 2015, approximately 6:30 p.m., an individual later identified as Neil Stewart responded to an advertisement posted by the UC. The defendant responded, "I'm into all things except for scat and piss." How classy of them. Yeah. The underside emailed the defendant back stating, "You like young incest." The defendant responded, "Indeed I do. Care to meet up and chat about it?" His phone number, and his name is Neil. The UC provided his phone number as well, and the UC and the defendant, UC is undercover, by the way, and the defendant switched to text messaging to communicate. The defendant commenced the text exchange on October 7th, 2015. "Hello, John, it's Neil. I don't want to be too blatant about types, but Family Anything is great. The UC purported to be the father of a 9-year-old daughter and asked the defendant if he had pics vids. The defendant responds, I've got plenty to share when we meet, nothing in this device. The defendant further stated that he was interested in willing children between ages 5 and 11, and he did play with his sister ages ago, which based on training and experience, the UC understood to mean that the defendant had engaged in sex acts with his sister. The defendant first further stated, I love the taste of their pussies. I miss it so much. The defendant indicated that he possessed images they collected from the internet. The defendant also informed the UC during the text exchange that he lived in Park Hall, just north of St. Mary's College. So he also stated that this guy Neil also stated that it was his birthday and he hoped that this was real, and it obviously it wasn't. He also indicated that, you know, one of the ways that you engage with kids is through vibrations, starting with small toys and moving up. It's like, I won't go any farther than that. Like, Jesus Christ. So they did catch him. But here, okay. So undercover sent an image of an adult woman licking a prepubescent child's vagina to prepubescent female children naked with their legs spread, exposing their vaginas, and a prepubescent female inserting her fingers. So the defendant continued to chat. He wanted more, and eventually he got caught. That's enough.
Yep.
I think you guys got
it. The people can read it. It's there.
I mean, this guy, he didn't produce the material, but he basically indicated that he has had sexual intercourse with, with underage before. He indicated an interest, et cetera, et cetera.
Images.
Yeah. So let me see if I can get the sentencing for this guy. This is the judgment. No, this is just talking about mental health. I want to see the so 57 months with credit for time served. So supervised release for 10 years, which, by the way, he didn't make because he was arrested for drugs. So for anyone to say that there isn't a tiered, there aren't tiers to this thing, they're just flat out wrong.
Correct.
There are different, levels to offenders. And to give Wesley Hawkins the same amount of time that they would give Neil Stewart would be wrong and punitive and not corrective. This is the Pretrial Services Agency, which deals in ways to help monitor, especially these particular types of people. We're talking about the high incident people and the highest risk. That's called the HISP program, which is what all those, the paperwork that you saw, like with the HISP release, that's what this is. Also, actually, let me see if I can find it, because it's in the I think it's in the Neil Stewart one. They talk about, this is in the defense. Let's see if I can. So here we go. So this is a list of the guidelines starting from 1991 to 2004. So 6 to 12 months was the base. And then as you add points, and it increases. 1991, the base would be 18 to 24 months. 1996, 27 to 33 months, and so forth. So what eventually happened in 2005, there was a Supreme Court case, United States versus Booker, which basically said that some of the guidelines did not fit some of the crimes, so that and the Supreme Court agreed that the judges have that it's just a guideline, that they have discretion.
Right.
So Ketanji Brown Jackson is using her discretion. So this is the final part of my piece. I'm getting away from, her judgment, Ketanji Brown Jackson's judgment, and I'm getting into the judgment of the Republicans themselves. Crimes are no longer a disqualification for Republican candidates. So let's talk about it a little bit. This is about Michael Grimm, admitted to hiring undocumented workers, hiding tax authorities from making false statements, et cetera, et cetera. Now, there's also sex offenders. I understand this guy didn't get elected, but people endorsed him. We have Steve Bannon who endorsed him. There's a list of all the sexual misconduct allegations against him. And by the way, I'm not saying convict him, because these are only allegations. Maybe they're not proven, but don't elect him. And if you remember, during the hearings, Lindsey Graham especially, he asked Ketanji Brown Jackson how she felt about Brett Kavanaugh and how he was treated in his hearing, to which she said, that has no bearing in my hearing. GOP senators complained that Brett Kavanaugh, who was accused of sexual assault, was treated with less respect than Ketanji Brown Jackson. And if you want to see the list of the sexual misconduct allegations against Brett Kavanaugh, they're right here in this Business Insider article. Deb, your favorite, Matt Gaetz.
Oh, yeah.
Reportedly under investigation for sex trafficking, attacks the Justice Department at CPAC. So, saying that the Federal Bureau of Investigation and the Justice Department were cheaters on par with Russia's Olympic team. I'm just saying.
Just a couple of things. Roy Moore There wasn't just
Yep.
one woman. There were 5 women that came forward.
Oh, and there's a list of them. There's a list of them in that article. Yep.
The other thing is right now, Matt Gaetz is under investigation for sex trafficking. So my point is not that these issues aren't issues that should be raised, but the level of hypocrisy that is abounding throughout this process is nauseating. You know, it really is. When you think about the fact that we actually do know, and I don't believe you have the article here, that some of what the FBI did as a background check on Kavanaugh was not submitted.
I don't have that. No,
I do have that. And so let me just say that Kavanaugh's on the Supreme Court with a lifetime appointment. A man who was literally well known throughout his college years for being an abuser of women. So, you know, I just find it all to be so much bullshit on a daily basis here. That,
and remember, listen, Susan Collins is doing the right thing, and she's voting yes.
Yep.
Apparently, but all of these people who are coming forward and saying, I respect Ketanji Brown Jackson, I voted for her, you know, in this district and blah, 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 and all this. But given that this is a lifetime appointment, I cannot in good conscience do that. Then why did you vote for her all these other times? It's the same job. It's very similar. I understand there's more scope, but it's the same job.
the bottom line is this. This is one aspect of her. One, what they're looking at.
Yes.
What they're doing right now is using this because they are now suddenly the law and order party. Even though it is it was their predilection to try to overturn a legitimate election. We're talking about a party that can't even police its own people. So I have a very, very hard time with all of this bullshit. And I can't help but feel in the back of my mind, if she were a white male in the same exact position with the same exact record, that any of this would ever have come up. I don't believe it would have.
I think this is all about Team Republican.
Right.
I just, you have Roy Moore, who was accused of child rape and child molestation. Let's just be honest. 14-year-old girls, I believe, were the 14-year-old was the youngest at the time, and he was 32. And then you have these cases in which these people are going to jail, and they're going to have supervised release, and some of them are going to have to register as child sex offenders. I don't know if all of them do. I don't think so. But their lives will be changed forever. And hopefully some of them will reform. But that's why, that's why you go through this. But none of these people, none of these representatives, or none of the freaking you have a Supreme Court justice who was accused of this. I'm not saying there's enough evidence to send him to jail, but you can't in one side of your mouth say this is an outrage, and on the other side of the mouth say you're being too lenient.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, you can, but so we have one more who. This guy is currently in office. And by the way, I see it all the time. You guys who are in Ohio, stop just tweeting JYM and vote this fucking guy out. Just vote him out. I don't know if you could call for a recall. I don't think you can. Why aren't more people talking?
United States.
Yeah.
We don't do that. We do that. The other countries do that. The only place we did a recall was in California because the guy was a Democrat. We don't
right. Gray Davis. Yeah.
Well, not just that. Yeah, they just recalled Gavin Newsom. He just survived.
Right. So this is why aren't more people talking about the Ohio State sex scandal? They're too worried about transgenders, competing in swimming events.
They're not worried about a guy who assaulted 350 athletes and handed out steroids, though. Especially since the assistant coach at the time was who? Jim Jordan.
And by the way, I haven't said, has this been released yet?
Not yet.
Okay. There will be a documentary series about the Ohio State abuse scandal. And Jim Jordan should be investigated, and he should be, at the very least, expunged from his office if he is found culpable at all.
And by the way, one of the victims is saying that he had full knowledge of everything that was going on. So that will have to be proven in court. And like everybody else, Jim Jordan has the right to be represented by an attorney and defend himself.
Just like everybody else.
Just like everybody else who was on this list. And you know what? If you believe in the Constitution, then that's what you believe.
And by the way, everyone who acts as a public defender or a lawyer who does their job and does their job well should not be persecuted for it. Here's a list of federal sex scandals in the United States. We have seen a lot of them. Now some of these are Democrats, but one thing I've noticed with these, the Democrats tend to leave office, a lot of them voluntarily. Al Franken left with it. What was it? Katie Hill. She left. I think she was the last one. Our governor, New York governor, left. So, just saying. Brett Kavanaugh. Latest ones, Matt Gaetz, Van Taylor. I guess Van Taylor decided to not run or pull out of his office. So. Now, remember this charming individual? Just making a point. Robert Regan, a Republican favored to win a seat in the Michigan House because he's the only Republican running in the primary, and that's a heavy Republican district. Yep. Made the comments while making an analogy about abandoning efforts to decertify the 2020 election.
Yeah, there you go. That's a good logical link.
If rape is inevitable, I'll tell my daughters to lie back and enjoy it.
Again, let me say this. We should have the same level of expectation of character for elected officials that we do for judges and every other position that might be coming up for appointment. And we don't, actually. It really doesn't seem to matter what happens with any of these people. It doesn't seem to matter, what they say or what they do.
Right.
We have a person who has just been indicted on 10 counts, 7 of which are federal crimes. For tampering with election machines during the 2020 election of Trump. She's been indicted. She's running
Which
for
state
Secretary of State.
Was that Colorado?
It's Colorado, I believe. Yes. Tina Peters is her name.
Yep. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Now, in my mind, if you've been indicted on a federal crime, you shouldn't be allowed to run. I don't care. You know,
especially when that crime is directly related to the job you're going to perform.
Right.
Come on.
You know, again, there's standards in this country for what's acceptable and what isn't. You're talking about a tiered approach to being able to sentence people for crime. Well, there's a tiered approach here for people who are in public service as well. Look, let's be fair across the board here. Every time the GOP does something that's egregious, you know, every time Marjorie Taylor Greene opens her mouth, okay, or Madison Cawthorn opens his mouth, his latest allegation is that he was invited to orgies where people were doing cocaine.
Right.
Okay.
Which I have to say, that reminds me so much of the Stephen Glass story. It really does. Spring Breakdown. I mean, it just sounds like he made it up. I mean, it doesn't matter. But
we have an elected official who, we have a 26-year-old first-time elected congressman who lied about his military background. Okay.
Right.
He lied about the accident he was in that made him paralyzed. He lied about just about everything prior to his election. His whole life was a fantasy for him. Okay. He has been photographed with pictures of Hitler.
Right.
He admitted to being armed to the teeth, carrying weapons in the Capitol building during the J6 insurrection and handing them out to people near him. Now, I don't know, people near him would have been other legislators. I don't know if he's lying about that too. Okay. And now he's been invited to orgies where they're doing cocaine. And we don't have just one person like this. The GOP is loaded with people like this now. This is it really. And every single time something like this happens, what do we have? We have Kevin McCarthy saying, I'll have a word with him. But there is no repercussion for these people. You can be an anti-Semite now and be in Congress. You can be a white nationalist now and be in Congress. And you have nothing. You are not being punished for anything. And you know what? That's not okay. I have a problem with that across the board. Okay.
Well, I'm gonna say something because, again, I'm not to make a big deal out of what happened recently. With everybody loves their entertainment, okay, and everybody was focused on one thing, which I'm not going to mention, by the way, because everybody knows what it is. But people need to have some kind of off switch when it comes to certain things. You want comedy, you want entertainment. Why in God's name would you watch Louis C.K. at this point? I mean, you have Louis C.K. who made jokes in his opening monologue at Saturday Night Live about pedophilia. Anybody who, it must be good. It's like a kid to them is like me eating a Mounds bar. That is not funny. It really isn't.
His entire roadshow right now is the I'm sorry tour, where he makes light of the shit he did to women. Okay. You know what? Again, we live in a country that is so off fucking kilter. It's frightening. It really is. I mean, look, I've been on the planet for a long time. Okay. I have. I've seen just about everything. I have equal amounts of disdain, believe it or not, for the Democrats that do wrong as I do the Republicans. But in no way am I ever going to say again that the parties are the same. They are not. Okay. Right now, we are faced. This is the argument I have on Facebook all day long. Okay. Right now, we have one goal here, and it's to keep these people out of power. The GOP cannot be returned to power. Okay. Look, under any circumstance, this is not my grandfather's GOP. Okay. It is not. Okay. We used to define the GOP as fiscal conservatives and the party of big business. Okay. That's what we used to. Now they are totally unhinged, totally unhinged. And they live on a set of standards that were left behind by Donald Trump. And that's a fact. In 4 years, he has done more damage to this country than anybody could ever imagine he would do. But he did it. He normalized a lot of shit. And these are the same people who are running roughshod over the Supreme Court nominee who refused to acknowledge the shit that Donald Trump did and defend the stuff that Donald Trump did. So,
Right.
You know what? It isn't going to happen for me.
I'm going to go back 1 second because I have a point to the Louis C.K. thing. When he goes on stage at this show, I just read it. The entire stage is dark. He walks up to the stage, and these light bulbs come on, like right above his head to say sorry, and everybody erupts into applause because they know what the joke is. You know what? If we're going to really take this country seriously, we have to have some kind of respect for one another. I'm not saying respect for that, but we have to have some kind of respect for one another. It's eroding to this country is falling. It's going to fall.
Respect for women in this country is non-existent right now. It is non-existent. Okay. It is non-existent. I'm going to tell you that. And frankly, we're more than 50% of the population. We contribute to the national, the income in this country. We pay taxes, and women who are sitting back and allowing this shit, really, you're as good. This country is as good as the people in it. It isn't just about the politicians. It's about the people normalizing this shit too.
It just seems to me that the Republican Party wants to protect females up to the age of consent, and then after that, all bets are off. I mean, that's what it seems to me.
They don't even want to protect females up to the age of consent. They want to tell a woman she can't have an abortion, but they don't want to pay for Head Start. They don't want to pay for kids' health care. They care about children so much. What's his name there? The Turtle Man. Mitch McConnell just killed a program designed for schools, that feeds kids. You know what? Don't talk to me about protecting children. What you are doing is positioning and pandering to the Christian nationalists, because that's what they want. All right. They want this country controlled by them. And you know what? I'm sorry, but this is not just about politicians. It is about what the American people are willing to accept. All right. I'm not willing to accept the shit that you are. I can tell you that right now. I'm just not.
How long is this one? I can't even tell.
Well, we're going to kill the recording now, but it doesn't matter because we started late. I don't think it's actually as long as you think it is.
No, I have no idea. That's why I'm asking. I think it's an hour and a half.
Maybe, but I'm killing it. So I am killing the recording here. You see what you saw? Here's my deal. I haven't found anything in watching all of these hearings that's a deal breaker for me.
Right.
She needs to be approved. And no one is ever going to convince me, as well as I've said, if she were a white male in the same position, even a white woman in the same position, she might not be in the position she's in with the GOP right now. Okay.
Hey,
this is
real-
more
real-
about the fact that she's
Yeah.
black and female.
Yeah.
And I don't care. I'm saying it flat out. The
Real
GOP
quick,
is
too.
racist.
Yep. I anytime that the GOP has as much histrionics as they do now, I understand they're running for office, for this year. I get that. There are other things going on too. I told you, the Sentencing Commission is completely open. Maybe they're pushing for that. I don't know. Maybe they're just thinking about the races. I mean, this nomination was all for the right wing and for the Republican Party, was all about pushing their agenda, jamming it down your throat. They didn't give a shit about her because they knew they weren't going to vote for her. But
Right.
thank you, Susan Collins, for at least doing the right thing.
By the way, let me just say this. Lindsey Graham, the little histrionic queen that had to rush out of the proceedings, had Joe Biden picked the right black judge, he probably wouldn't have reacted that way. But Joe Biden, at the end of the day, didn't pick his black judge.
Hey, Deb, how dare you? How dare you say that?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, anyway, I rest my case. The GOP is full of shit. I'm going to kill everybody. This will be up tomorrow morning. Have a lovely night. I'm just going to kill the recording. We can stay on.